發。
Members, we have attained the quorum. It is about time to make a start. Shall we invite the administration in, please? Now call the meeting to order. Shall we invite the administration in? Item number 1, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on February the 25th. Please refer to paper CB1 1066/12 to 13. This has been made available to members. We have received no proposed amendments. Can I take the minutes as confirmed? Information paper issued since last meeting. First of all, just last week, the administration published the Hong Kong Blueprint for Sustainable Use of Resources 2013 to 2022, paper CB1 1076/12 to 13, bracket 01. I realized that on Monday, some members attended the briefing held by the ENB. Mr. Christopher Zhong and Ms. Claudia Mo wrote in to the panel. Mr. Zhong's letter is CB 1103/12 to 13, bracket 01, seeking for these to be incorporated into the agenda. Ms. Claudia Mo's letter is CB 1103/12 to 13, bracket 02. That is the monitoring of the recyclables contractors. Now, there are some members referring to the recycling business. Other than Mr. Christopher Zhong, we have Mr. Kenneth Chan, who would like to bring up this recycling timber business. Now, other than landfilling and the extension of landfills, we have to discuss this recycling industry. I'm sure nobody would dispute this. We would like to have an agenda dedicated to the recycling business and the government's initiatives over the years and the resources of the policy going forward to strengthen this recycling industry. I will have a word with the Bureau when we discuss the MSW charging, the recycling, and so on. We would like to include this into the agenda. I don't think there would be an objection to that. Madam Chair, if I may bring up an item for discussion. You mentioned a moment ago the $10 billion set aside for the replacement of old vehicle fleet, and also some money set aside for the replacement of the catalytic converter for the bus fleet. Now, all these seem to be very fragmented. May I propose for the Madam Chair to decide, and that is that we should have an item specifically on the green transport, including the transport and also the infrastructure like the juice points for electric cars, and also the infrastructure for producing biofuel and so on. I hope that this can be put on the outstanding list items. Yes, certainly. If members would like to bring up an item, we can certainly include that in the list of outstanding items. It all depends on the priority and the readiness on the part of the Bureau, and then we decide on how soon we take these items. You'd like to have the green transport and infrastructure included. For members' information, the Director of Audit mentioned the value for money issue for air quality improvement. Members might wish to have regard to that document when we have the item for discussion. All right, the next meeting for the 24th of June, there are 3 items proposed by the administration: the outdoor lighting installation, light pollution. They have a report published by a working group. It is well worth some discussion. Second, the environmental impacts arising from marine dumping and dredging activities. Third, by Ms. Claudia Mo, the monitoring of the recyclable contractors. Now, we have 3 items, but we have 2 hours, and I don't think we have sufficient time, in particular when it comes to the recyclable industry. We would like to have more time. Let me make this suggestion. If the venue permits, we would like to extend the meeting to 3 hours, so that we would have more time for this item. Alternatively, we have a special meeting convened for this item. I will have a word with the Secretariat. Basically, the monitoring of the recyclable contractors, it deserves sufficient time as to how we go about doing it. You'll be kept posted going forward. All right, item 4. Proposed injection into the ECF, Environment and Conservation Fund, $5 billion has been set aside for injected into this fund. If I may invite the administration to take us through the paper. That's paper CB1 1067/12-13 If members have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest relating to this, then under 83A of the Rules of Procedure, please disclose the nature of the interest. When it comes to voting, members please note under 84 of the Rules of Procedure there are certain stipulations. Secretary. Madam Chair, thank you. Since 1994, the ECF has subsidized 3,000 odd initiatives with a total expenditure of $1.6 billion. We have supported a lot of NGOs, non-charitable organizations, community organizations, owners corporations, and so on, to promote green activities at the community level. The unspent amount is only $70 million as of last year, and it's going to be depleted. So we proposed that $5 billion be injected into the ECF to provide long-term and sustained development of the fund. The ECF is dispersing funding to meet the challenges. There are 6 major areas. The first one is to embrace waste reduction and reduction at source. Second, we'd like to reduce food waste and encourage food donation. Third, to target climate change, we'd like to encourage energy efficiency and energy saving. Fourth, we encourage a collaboration between industrial and trade organizations to promote environmental researches. Fifth, to tackle air pollution and climate change impacts, we would like to offer assistance to biofuel. Sixth, nature conservation. We will deepen public understanding of the environment and instill behavioral change. We are making people aware of their own responsibility for the environment. The ECF will be working in cooperation with the ECC to launch all these various programs. In terms of investment, we are liaising with the Hong Kong MA and enlist their assistance to make investment for the fund. Now, with this $5 billion injection, the final details of the management will be worked out together with the Hong Kong MA in consultation with the Investment Committee and the ECF. Now, if this proposal goes through the Finance Committee, of the panel, then we will be seeking funding from the Finance Committee in June, subject to Finance Committee's approval. We will be arranging briefings for the beneficiaries and brief them on the details of the ECF so that they get a better understanding of the fund. Thank you, Madam Chair. Right, members, I'm sure that we all agreed that the next item is going to be rather heated and more meaty than this one, so we'd like to maximize the time here for this item. I've got two members here. I'm going to draw a line there for the first round. Mr. Cheng Had-kan, Mr. Kenneth Chen, Mr. Tony Che, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, anybody else? Mr. Wu Chi-wai. All right. I'm sure more members will be coming forward. 4 minutes for each. I may draw a line somewhere as we go along. Mr. Chen Had-kan, Madam Chair, the fund is there to produce demonstration projects and to engage in research and so on. There have been 6 injections with a total amount of $1.7 billion. The Secretary mentioned that 3,000 or so initiatives have been funded. We have seen successes and failures for these initiatives. But as far as the fund is concerned, I think you haven't evaluated the success or otherwise of the fund. Now, for the success stories, how successful have they been, and can they be applicable to Hong Kong territory-wide? If you do not conduct any evaluation, then I think that you will be going against the original idea of this fund. So have you conducted any review with regard to the few thousand initiatives, whether they have been successful, and also whether you have adopted any programs, any projects, and applied them territory-wide? Secretary? Well, certainly we have to take stock of the situation before we can take the matter forward. Perhaps my colleagues can supplement with further details. Let me cite one example. We have subsidized some buildings to conduct carbon audit to enhance the energy efficiency and to achieve energy saving. Now, that went down pretty well in the community. We have liaised with the MSD, and at the right time they will be taking stock of the situation. And with the funding being dispersed, it will take a bit of time for them to collect all the data and then apply and extend the project territory-wide. So there will be a review of the situation, and the final data can be shared with members. Supplement? Yes, Mr. Che. Madam Chair. In Appendix 2, we have highlighted some of the achievements. We understand how important it is to share the results. So we have documented all these accomplishments and make them available to different people. Mr. Chen, well, you have shared all these achievements, and have you taken the lead and extended them all over Hong Kong? I mean, it's no good for you just to do something and allow the NGOs to follow suit. Now, if we have success stories, we hope that this can be extended to all over Hong Kong, like food scrap and so on. If this proves to be successful, we should apply this to all housing estates in Hong Kong. Are you taking the fund for pilot programs? Well, once the fund is exhausted, then the program would end there. Well, I heard that many of these initiatives are just one-offs, and it's no good. Secretary, why can't you lead the community in this regard?
Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Chan. We can perform evaluations on various projects. For example, we can think about how the existing buildings can conserve on the use of electricity. At the latter phases of the projects, we can conduct evaluations. Thank you, Chairman. Now we are investing $5 billion. What's your expectation on the level of return? If we make further investments, which projects would you go for, and what are the levels of returns you expect? I think organizations who are interested in applying for the funding would be interested to know. And how does the Secretary ensure that our public money will be utilized wisely and effectively? Earlier, the Secretary said he would review the results of the projects. And it's important that the money be put into right use and not be used for things like publicity only. So we have to protect the reputation, the name of the fund, and make sure they are used in a proper way. Is there an existing mechanism for evaluation? Thank you, Mr. Chance, for your questions. And these are things we care about. Let me invite my colleague, Mr. Chair, to respond. Thank you, Chairman. On the level of return, right now we are in discussion with HKMA to see if they can help manage the fund. And we can have a potential return of 5% per year. In the future, the actual sum might be lower, but this is our current projection. And if we are talking about $5 billion now, in the future we could have more funds in the ECF. Our average yearly expenditure is $150 million. And this enables us to start new projects going ahead. Social education and promotion are our goals, and the political backgrounds of the applying bodies is not one of our considerations. And it's very clear that it's been clearly stated that applying bodies cannot use our funds for political purposes, and we will follow up with their applications. If we have any suspicion, we will perform follow-up actions in future applications. Have you received any complaints in the past about on any of the applicants? I think we have to draw a clear line in terms of the responsibility. Will the government consider co-financing some of the projects? Or would you only be providing funding? Thank you, Chairman. The sum of the funding depends on the projects. But this varies case by case, so we cannot have a definitive answer. I'm very concerned about the $5 billion fund. Just now the Secretary explained the issue of return. Basically, the ECF is sustained by its return. From the figures in the last 3 years, the financial burden of this fund is somewhere between 200 to 300 million. Is this really enough? The fact is, no matter how much money we have, it might still be inadequate. So how do we set our priorities in terms of the funding? What's the mechanism? Is there an appropriate and effective mechanism in place to allocate the funds? In terms of investment, is it really necessary to work with HKMA to manage this fund, the 5 billion fund? Thank you for your question. As we just mentioned now, we have a very positive discussion with HKMA, and once we have the support of LegCo, and we will be able to push on this project. It's reasonable to assume that we can operate this fund using the returns generated. According to the current investment operations, this is certainly viable. And we expect a manageable level of return for the fund. And whether we can utilize this fund wisely, it's very important. And we can pinpoint specific environmental issues, and we will invest more on issues such as waste reduction and other important environmental issues. Thank you, Chairman. I have a follow-up question. In Appendix 1, since 2009, the amount of money undertaken is was rather large. It's up. We are talking about 200 to 300 million. Do we really need it? Do we really need to put in that much money? Our expenditure is actually spread across a few years and not just in 2009. Mr. Kwok, everyone's very concerned about the 5 billion. We have to get things straight. Right now, we are looking at spending 150 million a year, but in the future, prices could go up. And in the future, if we have to use 300, 400 million a year, do we still have the flexibility to use that money? And another question is, for the 3,000 or so applications in the past, apart from evaluations, will the administration encourage set conditions in which the applying bodies have to undertake their own projects? And if certain projects, such as recycling businesses, manage to finance themselves, can we assign these? Can the government shift these projects to the private sector? In terms of investment, over the past 5 years, our average expenditure is 150 million. I think this level of reserve is adequate for present use as well as for a certain time period in the future. And in the future, we can achieve a return rate of more than 5% a year. If the expenditure is over 5 billion, would you be willing to use the reserve money? And the second part of my question, on the research projects, if we see a market efficiency, we would continue. For example, in terms of switching off idling engines, we have introduced an air conditioning system, and if the project is successful, our fund will support projects which are commercially viable. Chairman, I have something to add. We talked about conserving energy in buildings. For example, let's think about how we conserve energy in older buildings. I think there would be a dominoes effect. And I think a lot of green businesses have a short return period. The return, the period of return can be as short as 1 or 2 years. We welcome public participation. But please bear in mind that since the area is not completely soundproof, please remain silent if you can. Mr. Wu Chi-Wai, 5 billion is not a small sum. If we use investment returns to sustain long-term educational efforts, as said in Section 12, you said you will have a lot of signature projects in the fund. My question is, are the results of these signature projects measurable? If we look at projects from the past, only a handful of those were actually effective. We need a way to gauge the results of these projects. Next up, we will talk about landfills, waste reduction, recycling, etc. So how are we going to use this sum and integrate the fund as part of a long-term blueprint? The long-term blueprint of resources in Hong Kong. From the papers, a lot of the environmental concepts are very vague, and there are not enough substantial measures to tackle problems like food waste management. How would you promote the fund to in a more universal manner? How would you integrate the fund into the blueprints?
Secretary. Well, Mr. Wu has put a very good question. We have done all these. I would like to gauge the effectiveness of these measures, and also how can we, like waste measures, how can we measure the success, and so on. Now, there are a couple of things here. In terms of energy efficiency for buildings, it would be very objective, like the amount of electricity that can be saved. There are things that would be more difficult to measure, like we would encourage reduction at source, a kind of lifestyle, green lifestyle, and it would be rather difficult to measure. It's not like the composting process that we talked about, reduction of waste at source. This kind of lifestyle is something that is embraced by the advanced jurisdictions. So there are certain items that would be easier to quantify. There are others, qualitative items that would be rather difficult to measure the effectiveness. But all these are just as important. Mr. J, I defer to Madam Zhang regarding the concrete example. Make it brief, please. Madam Chair, thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Wu. Let me cite some examples. In 2009, for schools, we have this meal portioning project for school. There's this on-site project that went down very, very well among schools. About 100 or so schools have already installed facilities to cook rice and vegetables on site. Now, with these facilities, we managed to keep down the amount of food waste considerably, because the students will demand the portion depending on their liking, and that would obviate the need for dumping a lot of unfinished lunch boxes. And we have also dispensed with these disposable lunch boxes and utensils, and which are creating a heavy burden on the landfills. The other thing is, in Hong Kong, we are encouraging buildings and industrial undertakings to apply for recycling facilities, and that met with a pretty good response. The recycling amount has increased compared with 2004. In 2011, we have seen about 10% increase in recyclables. This increase in recyclables has also reduced the burden on the landfills. Well, Madam Zhang, if you want to give us a whole list of all these initiatives, you don't have to read them out one by one. We can see that all these are in Appendix 2. The time is rather limited, and members and non-members are very eager to move on to the next item. Ms. Helena Wong, my question is very straightforward. First of all, here in Para 12, there are 6 areas that you'd like to solicit application for under the fund. What is the role of the administration? Is the administration playing a passive role? Now, you have the funding, and if they fulfill all these 6 areas, they can put in the application. There may be certain areas which attract overwhelming response, but there are other areas that would attract very little response. Then you have $5 billion injected, and you're going to spend about $200 million per year. Will these be lopsided? Are you saying that all these 6 areas are just as important? You will be apportioning the funding proportionally to all these 6 areas, or is it the case that with the funding being available, you will just spend all the money? It doesn't matter where the application falls into which category. So there may be areas where there will be no response at all. Secretary, thanks very much, Ms. Wong, for the question. As far as I understand, the response has been pretty positive. The demand for funding, in fact, exceeds the availability of fund. It is very much an interactive process, and the relevant committee would get to grips with the different areas. Now we have different weighting given to the 6 different areas. We have to have regard to the views of the committee. Now my colleague can let members know about the weighting, like waste and food waste in particular. If this is the priority area, then we would accord a higher proportion of funding. We have to work in keeping with the public expectations. Mr. J, Madam Chair. Now we have the 6 different areas because these are pressing issues. As to their weightings, we would have regard to the proportion of expenditures over the years and decide on the weightings for different areas. And we will conduct a review depending on the actual applications. So we're not really focusing on one area at the expense of the others. Ms. Wong. So items 1 and 2 will be the priority area. Is that right, in the coming 1 or 2 years? But this is not rigid as a particular percentage are being given to these items. Is that right? Well, the vetting committee will have to come to a consensus on the priority areas and where more funding would be given. As to the precise weightings, it would depend on the views of the committee. They will look at the quality of the applications. So there is indeed a bit of flexibility, and the whole process is interactive. All right, no other members would like to put questions? Other than Mr. Chung Kwok Pan, do I hear any further members? All right, let's make it the last speaker, Mr. Chung Kwok Pan. I'm going to draw a line then. Madam Chair, I'd like to put a question about the return of the fund. Now you leave the money with the Hong Kong MA. The rate of return is on average 3 to 5% per annum. So if the investment return is poor, can you spend any portion of the principal, or are you just working on the basis of the return for the operation, or can you use any portion of the principal? Mr. Kwok asked this question before. Well, Madam Chair, we, together with the investment committee, will work out an investment plan. Maybe for the first year, we would carve out a particular portion, maybe $300–400 million, as a buffer, so that in future, if for a particular year we are hamstrung by certain factors, we can spend we have money to spend. Now we will know how much we're going to get in terms of return, and we're going to have a budget for the coming years as to how we're going to spend the money. But historically, over the past 5 years, we spend $150 million per year, so we anticipate that there should be sufficient funding for us to use. Mr. Zhong, will the Hong Kong MA be charging any fixed amount like the MPF, and some money would be absorbed by the Hong Kong MA's administrative charges, where they're not charging anything in terms of the management? No, they won't. Okay then, unless there is any follow-up, let's move on to the next item, and that is the environmental infrastructure projects. Right, I'm running ahead of myself, I beg your pardon. Do you all agree that we refer this $5 billion proposal to the Finance Committee? No objection? It's got nothing to do with the PWCF, it's just the Finance Committee. Right, let's move on to the next item, environmental infrastructure projects. Basically, we are talking about the extension of the 3 landfills. Please refer to paper CB1 1079/12-13 We also have the background brief kindly produced by the Secretariat, CB1 1079/02, and a submission from the residents, /03. We have the Secretary, Undersecretary, Political Assistant, and Dr. Chan Albert, and also Mr. Lau. Secretary, can you please take us through the paper? Madam Chair, thank you. Well, this is about the extension of the 3 landfills. Well, many members might ask about the role to be played by the landfills in the entire blueprint. Earlier, the Secretary already published or announced the blueprint for sustainable use of resources 2013 to 2022, and all the relevant measures in this regard. Now, our idea is to reduce reduction and to drive behavioral change. In the coming 10 years, we hope that the disposal rate to reduce from 1.27 tons per person by 40% to 0.8 kilograms. At the present moment, we have 52% devoted to landfilling. In 2022, there are going to be 3 different measures to deal with waste. 22% for landfilling, 23% for waste to energy incineration, and we're going to be increasing the recovery rate to 55%. Now, this represents a considerable challenge for Hong Kong compared with other Asian countries. This shows the 1.36 kg for domestic waste disposal, much higher than other jurisdictions. In terms of infrastructure, they have different measures to deal with waste, but in Hong Kong, other than recovery, 52% of the waste ends up in the landfill. For waste to energy incineration, we don't have the infrastructure for that yet. By comparison with other jurisdictions, South Korea and Taipei, in the 1990s, the amount of waste produced in Hong Kong was similar to that in Taiwan, but since 2000, as Taiwan and South Korea have adopted the charging scheme, the waste level in Hong Kong has remained at a pretty high level, whereas the other 2 jurisdictions have seen a high reduction.
希望三管齊下。
In terms of policy direction, we have a three-prong actions. In this action blueprint, we have a list of actionable policies and corresponding activities. First, we look at prevention, recycling, as well as disposal. In terms of prevention, one of the most important policies is MSW charging. If we can implement the charging, we will see results in other schemes. We will also look at charging for construction waste. Although this is not one of the key actions of this action blueprint, this will be beneficial to Hong Kong, and we also launched a Food-Wise Hong Kong campaign to reduce the amounts of food waste in cooperation with the trade. And the second phase of the plastic shopping bags scheme, charging scheme, will also be in place. Recently, we launched a producer responsibility scheme for glass beverage bottles, and we just established 2 sites for recycling electronics. And other initiatives including OWTF and the integrated waste management facilities. And after implementing all these, the third part of the blueprint is the landfill extension of various waste management sites. This map shows the locations of our major waste processing facilities. And we have chemical waste processing plants in Kowloon and Kwai Ching. And we also have facilities in the North District and Lantau Island. And we also have a sludge processing plant in Lamma Island. For landfills, we have 3 landfills in operation in the new territories. And these landfills will be exhausted by 2013, 15, and 17. And the yellow lines indicate the locations of the current landfills in operation, and the parts enclosed in red are sites which are under construction, and we have a number of improvement measures in place to minimize the impacts to the local residents and the environment. Apart from the northeastern landfill, these measures will benefit the whole of Hong Kong. And the first measure is the diversion of sludge to SDF. And if the sludge facilities can be in operation by this year, we can soothe the workloads of the landfills. And second, we want to reduce food waste disposal. And to achieve this, we will work with different trades to reduce the amount of waste. And the third suggestion, we will phase out pre-Euro 4 diesel commercial vehicles as soon as possible. And this would help the landfills as well. And the fourth measure is we have launched a code of practice for the operation of refuse collection vehicles. And this would be very useful for the trade to understand the operation of these RCVs and minimize disturbances to the environment. And we also have a number of measures to help the environment of local districts. We have greening projects, and we also have stream cleansing operations. And the second landfill is this Southeast North Territories landfill, and the area enclosed in yellow is currently in operation. And you can see some plants already planted in this area. Actually, before the landfill extension as SE New Territories, we already have 2 other landfills which have already been exhausted and under recovery. In the paper, we will be extending the landfill area enclosed in red, and this includes area 137 in Changguan-o, and we will relocate some of the constructions to make way for the extension. And if you look at this map, this would be further away from the residents. This will be the site of the landfill in the future. Albert, please wait a minute. For members of the public, this agenda is very important to the residents, and I understand all your concerns. But today, I believe everyone wants to know the administration's views and the members' views. So may I ask you to please keep your silence, and you would have the chance to speak up in another meeting. Thank you, Chairman. Besides the suggestions I presented for southeastern New Territory sites, we have done something to tackle environmental problems. First is the concern on air quality. We will monitor air quality, which includes monitoring facilities for PM 2.5. And we hope this will be implemented as soon as possible. And the second is the problem of vehicle flow at Wanpo Road. After the extension project starts, it will be used to process construction waste only. And we hope vehicles which process MWVs would not be a problem. And third, we would be able to control the problem of odor. If we it will help in controlling the odor if we only process construction waste. And fourth is the problem of dust at Wanpo Road. And we will clean the streets. We will clean the vehicles which go in and out of the area. And we will also conduct law enforcement in order for vehicles to obey the laws. And fifth is the leakage and illegal dumping issue of vehicles. And we will work with the trade to implement best practices, and we will also we will also enforce the law accordingly. Just now we talked about issues like PM 2.5. This is something we will implement this year. We will set up monitoring devices. We will set up an odor monitoring team at Lotus Park, and we will station staff to take in complaints and make sudden inspections to measure the volume of odor. On the management of sludge, can members of the public please keep quiet? Otherwise, this meeting cannot continue. We hope the sludge processing plants can be in operation this year. And also, we also have measures which can be implemented in 2 or 3 years, and there are also long-term issues. For example, implementing the blueprint for sustainable use of resources, and all these would have positive impacts on the community. And next up is the West New Territories landfill extension proposal, and the extension area is enclosed in red. For Tuen Mun and West New Territories, we also have measures in place. Most of the waste in this landfill are transported by ships, and with the STF going into operation, we hope we can further improve environmental conditions in this area. And we also hope to talk with the Tuen Mun District Council and implement a number of measures, including setting up an air quality monitoring station in Tuen Mun. The testing has already been completed, and the construction is in progress, and it will be in operation later this year. And the District Council, we are also working with the District Council to help improve the transportation in the district. We are talking about greening measures. Some of the landfills have already been exhausted, and we have already started restoration works. And you can see from these pictures, after restoration, they can be used for recreational purposes, and you can see parks. And these are more innovative use of the land. And on the left, can Mr. Lam please speed up a little? You might ask why we need to extend all 3 landfills. As we have shown in the pictures earlier, all these 3 landfills are very important. And in the last century, we already made it clear that the landfills must be close to the source of the waste, and they must be located in a balanced manner. And they also need to have synergy with other waste facilities in their vicinities. Right now, we have very limited remaining landfill capacity, so we have a need to extend the landfills because it's very difficult for us to locate new sites for landfills. And Otherwise, it will have a very negative effect on Hong Kong. And over 100 tons of carbon monoxide and other exhaust gases will be emitted. And we need to have waste transportation sites in its vicinity.
I have 7 members on the list. Your hands up, please. The names are as follows: Ronnie Tong, KK Fong, Albert Chan, Elizabeth Quat, Chen Han Pan, Helena Wong, Vincent Fang, Kwok Wai Keung, Chen Yun Han, Gary Fan, Chen Hek Ken Wu Chi Wai, and Mr. Lo Wai Kwok, Tony Che, Chen Kin Po. Anybody else? There are 15 members on the list. 4 minutes each would be about an hour. Perhaps 3 minutes would be more appropriate. I mean, we can work out the time. Maybe 3 minutes each. I will have to stop you by the time your time is up. So please make it brief. The same can be said about the officials as well. Mr. Ronnie Tong, thanks very much, Madam Chair. I'm sure that the Secretary and the Undersecretary are aware of the problems in Tseung Kwan O. The problem predates their assumption of office. The Tseung Kwan O residents have been putting up with the order for a long time. Now you're seeking an extension of 13 hectares here. If I may put a simple question. 13 hectares of land in NT North and NT West shouldn't present any problems at all. The only problem may be the transport and the conveyance and so on. The haulage vehicles may have to cover 60 kilometers in the haulage. I'm not sure how you arrived at this figure. And this is possible. You still have 2 years' time. Why don't you identify a better haulage mode and give up the extension of the Tseung Kwan O landfill? All right, members of the public. Members have only 3 minutes to speak. We're running out of time. Well, I lost 20 seconds, Madam Chair. Well, I have to say this once and for all. I fully understand how you feel about the issue. I don't really want to see anybody being escorted out of the conference room. So please maximize the time available. I compensate 20 seconds for Mr. Tong. Madam Chair, we understand that this is really a dilemma. In Tseung Kwan O, we only receive the construction waste. We would like to balance the different interests, the demand in the community, and also the need for landfilling. We said before that in Singapore and South Korea, they have limited land, they have high population, and they have to put the waste into landfills. And in Hong Kong, if you look at the 3 landfills, they have very short lifespan left, about 3, 4, 5 years. Well, Secretary, the Secretary is not answering my question. You said you compensated 20 seconds for me. All right, make it quick then. right? I let you criticize the administration. Well, if the capacity in the NT can cope, why can't they consider something about the haulage? Well, 3 minutes will not be sufficient. Perhaps the Secretariat would do this. All the questions put by members that have not been answered by the administration, this can be listed. Right? It's not that they don't have time. They are not prepared to answer the question. Well, Mr. Tong, how are you going to deal with this if you sit in my seat? Well, I have to lodge a protest, Madam Chair. Well, that's why I have asked the Secretariat to document members' questions. Now, the questions that remain unanswered, that you can follow up on this, you can cast a no vote on this particular project. Mr. KK Fong, well, I'd like to put a question. I don't expect a reply. C.Y. Leung said during his campaign that we should maximize the limited land in Hong Kong for housing. Second, he didn't support the idea of extending the landfill. He said that we should seek to reduce waste. We should not install the incinerators. Now, Mr. Edward Yao withdrew the incineration project. As a result, we have a new secretary, and he is basically trying to resurrect Edward Yao's idea. Is it a protest against C.Y. Leung because he's not living up to his pledges, or did C.Y. Leung ask you to resurrect what Edward Yao already withdrew? Now, for waste reduction, you seek to reduce from 1.27 to 0.8 kilogram. This is not 40%, but only 37%. In South Korea, when they announced the waste charging, the waste reduction has reduced by 30%. You said here that it's only in 2022 that you're going to be reducing the waste by 30%. Now, from the time you start the charging, how soon do you think you will be able to achieve the 30%? Third, now for charging to be imposed, there ought to be some choices. Now, people can choose not to use plastic bags. Now, you have all these software. Now, how are you going to maximize the software? In Seoul, they have a very detailed program for waste reduction, but in your blueprint, you haven't got any ideas. Now, you will be extending the landfills in Zhongguan and Chunbo. You are worsening the odor. C.Y. Leung said that he's running out of land, and how can you make sure that there will be no problems in terms of odor? Fourth, the world over, they are seeking waste reduction. The objective is to use less landfill, to use less incineration. Now you're seeking incineration, you're seeking landfill extension. I think you're bucking the trend. Now this blueprint is in fact bucking the worldwide trend. Now we visited Seoul together with you. How can you expect me to support you? I would object to your idea here. Madam Chair, I think it's all a question of an extension of the real estate hegemony. The developers have procured all this land, and they're trying to paint a rosy picture when they build properties there, and people are suffering a great deal. Here, the government is extending agony for the residents there. I think it has everything to do with the real estate development here. It has, I think it is an indictment of the failure of town planning in Hong Kong. Now, this is happening all over Hong Kong, Tin Shui Wai, Tsuen Wan, Zhongguan. Mr. Secretary, it is not solely your responsibility, but the failure of will harm the general public. Well, I mean, I am sounding like a broken record here. I'm repeating myself here. The government is really lagging far behind by 10, 20 years. Now, when it comes to waste treatment, we have landfilling and incineration, and then back to landfilling. It's come full circle. In other jurisdictions, they have already started with incineration. Hong Kong is lagging far behind. Now, you are seeking to change from landfilling to incineration, and you have really lagged far behind in terms of design, in terms of everything. Now, you are seeking to expand the landfilling capacity. I would object to that. I said this to previous secretaries. I think Hong Kong should get on with the compulsory waste separation at source. Once this happens, then you would be in a position to know how much waste you're dealing with. Without this waste separation, and you are expanding the landfilling capacity, and you're starting the incineration, and you're going to build a massive incinerator on Lantau Island, I would object to that vehemently. You have committed failures in your design, and you try to make up for your failings by making the members of the public suffer even more. Now, because of these policy failures, you are creating all these problems. You are creating more and more problems. You are part of the problem. Now, incineration, for instance, on Lantau South, this is a scenic spot, and you're creating an incinerator. It would be like building an incinerator near Hangzhou, near the West Lake, the beautiful scenic West Lake. I mean, I'm vehemently objecting to this paper. I understand that some members would like to move a motion later on, but we would like to object to the 3 projects altogether. Ms. Elizabeth Quat. Madam Chair, thank you. Madam Quat, can you stop for a moment? I know that Mr. Paul Che raised the question of order. On 2 occasions, I have made this clear to the residents. We must understand that the extension of the landfills would have grave bearings on the residents. I wouldn't stop them clapping after members have spoken, because that wouldn't get in the way of our question and answer. We understand their sentiments, unless the members are telling me not to allow them clapping. Well, let me say this, Madam Chair, it's a matter of principle. If you allow the audience to clap after members, then you're encouraging something to happen. I'm not saying that we don't welcome them, but I think we have to respect the dignity of the proceeding. We have to remain neutral. And I think this applies not just to this committee, but also to other panel meetings as well. Right, members of the public, please observe the order of the panel. I would be liberal. I would try to strike a balance, but I hope that you would do us a favor. Madam Quat, please. Madam Chair. About the Zhongguanou landfill, this has been besetting the Zhongguanou residents for so long. They are suffering from this odor problem. It is full of dust on Wanpo Road, and we have been making many suggestions to the administration about how this problem can be mitigated. Now, all these years, all the suggestions have fallen on deaf ear. And we suggested that no more food scrap be transported to Zhongguanou landfill, and the Wanpo Road should be restricted to certain polluting vehicles, so that the air quality there can improve. I would doubt very much whether the landfill is managed properly. Now, the landfilling management has been outsourced. The management company does have the obligation to improve the situation. I haven't seen anything happening there. Now, we have had a lot of negotiations. The government simply cannot deliver what we suggested. With the extension of the landfill, I'm wondering how the 5 points can be delivered by the administration, and whether this would resolve the the problems associated with air quality, the health, and so on, I can't see how these can be improved. So I don't think that the administration should be responsible enough to suggest an extension of the Zhangguanou landfill. I would suggest that the government withdraw this Zhangguanou landfill extension project. I hope that the administration will give the undertaking that they would, in the near future, the Zhangguanou landfill would only receive construction waste, so that all the problem can go away, because there is no way you can close it.
Residents, members of the public, as Dr. Quat was speaking, if you did not hinder her speech, that would be okay. However, if any of the speakers or members are affected by the noises generated by any of you, I will invite you to leave the room. The electrical should be open and transparent, and we always welcome public participation, but please observe the order. Thank you, Chairman. Right now, as the Zhangguanou landfill is still in operation, it has brought a lot of hassles to Zhangguanou residents, and I think the government ought to implement immediate measures to solve the residents' problems. And you cannot. It's very irresponsible to ignore all these problems, and now you're asking for us to approve a new extension of the landfill. Thank you, Chairman. This is certainly a dilemma, but the new term administration, with the new administration, we are doing our best in terms of the problem of dust, waste reduction. We hope to immediately measure a series of policies to tackle this problem. Mrs. Helena Wang, land resources in Hong Kong is very precious. The location of the landfill creates a problem of close proximity to the residents, and this is the reason for so many complaints, and we can see that in many other countries as well. Right now, we rely a lot on landfills. 55% of our municipal solid waste go to landfills. This is unsatisfactory. If we do nothing about the situation, the problem will continue, and this is unacceptable. And right now, your plan is that 10 years down the road, still more than 20% of the solid waste will go to landfills, and you expect the incinerators to handle 23% of the solid waste. I want to know how these statistics come about, and my question is why 10 years later we still have so much waste going to landfills. Is there any plans to eliminate landfills altogether? Right now, you see, Japan has no landfills, so I'm not sure if this information you display are accurate. So 10 years later, why are we not setting our goals on eliminating landfills? For the remaining 40% of the waste, I want to know how you set your objectives. I think we're talking. Our directions are the same. In South Korea, 60% of the waste are recycled, 20% are incinerated. Right now, our general directions are in line. In Japan, there are also landfills. However, they have used 20 years or more to implement the measures. In our case, the results we have achieved in the last 10 years of the blueprint is already commendable. And we need time to implement the fine prints of the policies. We also need time to discuss and implement the policies. Our goal is to take reference from South Korea's 60% 2020 ratio. Chairman, on behalf of the Liberal Party, we do not agree with this landfill extension proposal. Right now, you are talking about extending landfills, but what else have you done? In terms of this recycling at source, you mentioned in the table that 48% of the waste are recycling. The fact is, you are also including the waste which are exported. If you only talk about landfill extension, what other measures have you implemented? One thing you have done well in the documents is that you will stop receiving sludge. However, when will you stop receiving sludge? Today, if we stop receiving all sludge at Cheongguan-o, and if we stop receiving any food waste and only process construction waste in the future, will we actually see improvements in the problem of odor in Cheongguan-o? In the next 2 years, have you taken the amounts of waste recycled into consideration? A lot needs to be done in waste recycling. We have visited South Korea and they have done a lot. But now you have done nothing. You have not done anything on recycling at source. You have not done anything on food waste. So within 2 years, what are you going to do with our food waste? The food waste make up a big percentage of our waste, and it's also a main source of odor. I hope the recycling rate of food waste, as well as recycling at source, these are some of the issues which need to be looked at. Thank you, Chairman. Generally, I agree with Mr. Fang, but I want to clarify on a few things. For South Korea, for the recycling at source, we are heading towards better results. The food waste and timber waste are now being processed. Mr. Kwok? Just now, the Secretary for the Environment talked about the overall strategy. He said we have to extend landfills because to balance interests. No matter how good this reason sounds, the conditions at Cheongguan-o are really unsatisfactory. Although it was the previous term government who decided to build residence near the Cheongguan-o landfill. In the future, why why don't we do something about to stop the extension of the landfills? Granted, we will conduct studies, monitoring on dust. However, the fact is the Chengguan-o residents are looking at, they see all the dust, all the problems. As residents of Hong Kong, why would anybody want to risk their lives living in Chengguan-o, and why are the authorities continuing to hurt the health of the residents? Why do we not do something about it and remedy the situation, and why can we not achieve better living conditions for the residents in this area? We have to consider the overall needs of Hong Kong. I completely understand Mr. Kwok's concerns, and a lot of members have mentioned this point. The bottom line is we need to maintain the capacities of the landfills. We have to make good use of the landfills. This is a practical consideration. Balancing the interests is one of our key jobs. Reducing the number of vehicles, stepping up air quality monitoring. These are some things we hope to do very soon. This proposal with the landfill is problematic, and in the overall blueprint, it does not mention when you will have proposed extensions to the landfills again in the future. Chairman, Secretary, no matter how convincing you are, you should not take this attitude to LegCo. I understand your challenges, the problems. Granted that the previous term government had some problematic policies. For example, Lohas Park is certainly not a good place for living, and I have experienced it for myself. And if you you are talking about extending this landfill, this is unreasonable, completely unreasonable. You cannot say that we have to follow the global trend. I suggest you to cancel this proposal altogether. This is not the attitude, not the right attitude. If you want a negotiation, the Chengguan-o issue is well known to everybody. Mrs. Sitho, you might remember we have talked about this before. I know you're facing a lot of pressure, Secretary. I think you need to learn communication. No matter how reasonable you are, the only choice is to withdraw your proposal. I know you have a lot of problems, but you need to withdraw the proposal first. We do not agree at all with the proposal at Chengguan-o. I have heard comments from residents who are actually living in here, and I have seen it for myself. The problem of odor is very bad, And to have this proposal at this moment is very politically immature.
主席，
Secretary, 15 seconds. Thanks very much, Madam Chen. You have reflected the concerns of the residents about odour. We said before that it is important for us to tackle this odour problem together. This is a sincere attitude on my part. Mr. Gary Fan, I've been a district councillor for 13 years in Zhengguano. We have always been concerned about this odour problem. I know Dr. Chen and Mr. Chen for about 10 years now, because every time you came, we would express very, very strong views to you. The Neo Democrats said that if the Zhengguano landfill is expiring in 2015, it should be closed. I would hold fast to my position here, because in 2005, when the administration launched the MSW strategy, they didn't do a good enough job regarding waste reduction. And if they have to make the Zhengguano residents put up with the problem because of your failure, then it is not appropriate. Over the past quarter of a century, the population has increased from about 100,000 to a quarter of a million. They have built the landfills by the size of 10 Victoria Parks, and they are shouldering 30% of the solid waste in Hong Kong. I think they have done their bit, and I don't think there should be any extension of the landfill. Now, you have 70 hectares in the new territories, and you seek by comparison with the extension of the NT landfills, this 13 hectares extension is really minuscule. Madam Chair, I've got a motion which I will present to the Chair, and I hope that members would express our strong position vis-à-vis the Zhengguano landfill. We don't want to see any extension to the Zhengguano landfill. Right, so please Xerox a copy for each member. Madam Chair, we visited South Korea. The landfills are really very far away from residential dwellings, unlike the Zhengguano landfill. I think it is not just a problem of the ENB, but also other bureaus. It has to do with the government policy. Hardly ever do I see any landfill so close to residential dwellings. Now, Lowhurst Park is about the size of 2 Taikoo Shings, and I don't think there should be any more extension encroaching upon these residential dwellings at all. Secretary, well, we understand the views expressed by Mr. Fan about the proximity. All right, Mr. Fan's motion is very straightforward. Less than 20 words perhaps, and let me just read it out. I don't propose to photocopy this. This panel objects to the extension of the Southeast New Territories landfill. Clear enough? All right. If you don't see the need, then I save the photocopy. Can I move an amendment as a non-member? Mr. Fong, you can't even vote, let alone amendments. Well, this is the dilemma of a one-member party. You might wish to lobby somebody else. All right. Most members have already put up their hands to raise questions. We still have a bit of time. For those who haven't spoken, Ms. Emily Lau and Mr. Paul Chair, I have to draw a line there. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok is here. Well, definitely I'll be drawing a line there. All right, let me read out the names again. Mr. Chen Hek Ken, Wuchi Wai Lo Wai Kwok, Tony Chair, Chen Kin Po, Emily Lau, Paul Che and Mr. Chen Han-pan is on the list, but he's not here. I've got some questions. I'll spend about a minute. All right, Mr. Chen Han-pan. Madam Chair, thank you. A moment ago, some members and indeed some residents and some political parties have expressed their objection regarding the Zhongguanou landfill extension. I share their views. I don't propose to repeat it. I will spend so much time on the Zhongguanou extension. There are two other landfills which are really vast in areas, and I'd like to say something for the residents in the vicinity of these landfills. Tunmun, for instance, the administration mentioned improvement measures to help the Zhongguanou residents to tackle the pollution, the odor, but the residents said no to these proposals. Now, when the administration proposed the Sau-lan and Tunmun landfill extension, they haven't got any proposals like those for Zhongguanou. Now, these landfills are larger than Zhongguanou, but you don't have any improvement measures. How can this be acceptable? In Tunmun, when they built the sludge treatment plant, they gave the undertaking that there wouldn't be any more polluting or obnoxious facilities to be put in Tunmun. Now they are proposing an extension. How can they be accountable to the residents in Tunmun? Second, Sau-lan landfill. The residents in the North District told us that they are very concerned about the waste that will be diverted from Zhongguanou to Tunmun and the North District. Now, this is the food waste. Now, the haulage would cover the total highway. They will go through Fanling, Taipo, Shengshui, Shataokok. What is the size of population there? What is the environmental pollution that will be caused to these residents? If you haul them to Tunmun, you go through Kowloon, Tunmun Highway, how are you going to solve this hygienic problem? You may say that you've got really wonderful refuse collection vehicles, but in Zhongguanou, you look at the experience there, everybody is saying that the RCVs are no good. So for these two landfills, I'd like to raise these points on behalf of the residents living close by. Secretary. Thanks very much, Mr. Chen, for the question. Basically, we try to balance the community needs and aspirations of the residents. We try to reduce the quantity of municipal solid waste. But Secretary, why don't you address the question about hygiene and pollution? Well, we will try to reduce the odor. For Tunmun, the haulage will be by sea, so the impact on the land transport can be kept to a minimum. Mr. Wuchiwai, Madam Chair, if you look at the landfills, the three landfills, the cost would be staggering for extension from 06 from the MSW strategy to today. What we can't set our mind at ease is that this extension would represent a buying of time. We're not sure whether everything will be falling into place after this extension. I understand that waste management is something for the whole of Hong Kong. It is for the whole government. It's not just for the Environment Bureau. Now, is the government, for instance, be prepared to put too much emphasis on cost? Now for bottle recovery, now you're saying that you only recover part of it because you don't have the facilities. Now, we are spending all this money to extend the landfills, and you are concerned that the other measures may not be able to achieve the desired effect. Now, until the government has the determination to tackle this waste problem, as a government issue, then the Democratic Party will find it difficult to support this idea. Secretary, let me clarify on the question of bottles. We are liaising with the departments that the plastic, the glass bottles through government projects and others. So we will accept all these glass bottles. Mr. Wu, well, if the government is not determined to build this production line to make sure that this recycling business would be achievable, then you are sending you are resorting to exporting the waste. Like if China doesn't take any more waste paper, then the waste paper will be stuck in Hong Kong. If the government is not determined to produce the production line for the recycling industry, then all these recycling objectives would amount to hot air. Secretary, well, I'm sure that we're pulling in the same direction. We hope that through all these initiatives, we'll get the objectives achieved. Now, we've been to South Korea, and they can't even recycle all the recycled materials within the country. Hong Kong is a small place with a big population. So while we achieve recycling, we are up against a lot of constraints. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. Madam Chair, the administration proposes the ratio for 2022. Now, indeed, there are many factors that have to be taken into account. Now, the 2011 waste reduction will be reduced 1.27 to 0.8 in 2022. Now, the other thing is the waste to energy incineration. Third, landfilling. It would be difficult not to adopt a landfilling because, as far as I understand, there's a waste to energy incinerator. We're talking about just one facility here. Now, 55% would be recycling, 20% landfilling, and 20% incineration. Now, a lot of members have cited Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan for comparison. Well, I've took part in some studies on MSW. I've been to Japan on more than one occasion, visiting their facilities. In Japan, in Singapore, it is 1% for landfilling. They have lots of incineration. In Tokyo, they have the incinerators in almost each and every prefecture. These are modern state-of-the-art ones. That the administration hasn't got very good policy in this regard, and we're very unhappy about it. Now, the government is moving in the direction of waste reduction. Even if they can achieve 0.8 kilograms per day per person, there is still a need for landfilling. And we do need to have large-scale incinerators. And it is a bit of a dilemma for Hong Kong, but I think we have to grapple with this problem. My question then is this. The Secretary said a moment ago that we can achieve the same rate as Singapore, Japan, and Taiwan in terms of landfill. We may be able to emulate South Korea. Now, there was a question a moment ago about not to extend the landfill and to increase the incineration. Do you have any plan for this ahead of 2022, Secretary? Under Secretary. Mr. Low, let me just finish. We are actively considering this. We're actively considering other facilities. Of course, in terms of waste reduction and source, we'll see how we can do more of.
Municipal waste is a problem we have to tackle. The government has mentioned multiple measures, such as waste reduction at source. Incineration and landfill are two of the solutions, and we have to think about the ratio of each approach. My question is, in terms of the 10-year blueprints, how much demand do we put on landfill? Do we have any adjustments on the area of landfills needed? Have you considered the ratio of incineration and landfilling? Because both would have negative impacts on the environment and the residents. And have you thought about how whether these approaches will be well received by residents? Apart from capacity, when we went to Seoul, they have to use more electricity. So, do we have to bear bigger costs on electricity? So, have we thought about any of these problems, Undersecretary? By 2022, we expect the recycling rate to increase to 55%. And for cities like Seoul, they are doing rather well, and their recycling rate is 60%. After 2022, our recycling rate might increase, but we cannot expect a percentage like 90%. In the future, we will take new technologies into account, and we'll think about what facilities and where we build them. And you can see from other cities, whether in Asia and Europe, charging is very important. And we will perform public consultation very soon on the mechanisms of charging of the charges. And if we can implement charging by 2016, unless we can achieve that by 2016, we have to postpone our timetable. We still need a lot of consultation on this, but at this point, we hope to have a consensus on the direction of the blueprint. This is a workable and also an aggressive plan. Thank you, members. The extension of the landfills is a difficult decision because it will affect residents. If I'm a district councillor, however, it will be an easier choice because the councillors serve to help the residents. The administration promised not to manage waste gases in order to not generate any more odor to help benefit the local residents. And I think it's thanks to the pressure from local groups and councillors that the government decided to revise its measures. So I asked district councillors to continue to voice their opinions in the future to affect the government's decision. When we think about the short-term and long-term impacts of the Chengguan issue, if you look at places like Seoul, they still need landfills. The government faces a lot of obstacles in implementing its projects. I think we still need landfills at least for the next 8 or 10 years. And the waste disposal is potentially a great problem for Hong Kong, so we need to handle it ASAP. If we don't take action as soon as possible, we can expect big problems a few years later. So my question is, do you have any plans for compensations to the Tseung Kwan O residents? Would the administration respond, Mr. Lam? Would anyone respond to Mr. Chan's question? Mr. Lam. Chairman, I want to make a few points on compensation to the SENT landfills. On issues like Wanpo Road, as we mentioned already, in the future we will only receive construction waste in the future and not exhaust gas or other unwanted waste. We have decided not to process these unwanted waste at this site, which is situated near residents. Mrs. Lau? I think the Secretary knows how it feels to be attacked by all angles. We visited South Korea together. We all see controversial issues together. I think that the administration must hold meetings with various stakeholders. As a member of the Democratic Party, we appreciate the efforts, but it's still not enough. The Secretary mentioned the waste pitfall. But today I see that the Secretary's efforts would be in vain. I agree that the problem of waste has to be tackled, and I suggest we host a summit on waste where we invite all representatives from green groups, government officials. So what do we do with the waste? Do we just throw it away? So why are your suggestions not supported by anybody except Mr. Chan? So I think this is a question you have to ask yourself, and you have to see what went wrong with the proposal. Chairman, thank you for Mrs. Lau's suggestion. I think this is a great idea. This is a long-standing problem of Hong Kong. It requires efforts from the government, district councils, legislators, and this is exactly what the 10-year blueprint serves to do. If we look at cultural implications, infrastructure, a lot of improvements are needed, and there are issues we need to tackle as soon as possible. The issues on waste I mentioned before are very objective facts. If we have a summit where we involve the public and various stakeholders, I think this is a very good thing to help follow up on this issue. Chairman, I hope the administration can learn, and they have to discuss the problem with everyone and reach a consensus with everyone. Otherwise, it will be very hard for you to implement any policies. Mr. Paul Chair, thanks for the chance the chance you gave me to speak up. In the past, I think the current political climate has changed. Places like Jordan Valley are even closer to residents. I think we have better facilities at certain sites. However, there are still presents we have to solve. My question is, if we do not approve the extension of the landfills at the moment, right now, if we look at the extension proposals of the 3 landfills, it seems that the South New Territories landfill, the expansion, the area expanded is lesser than the other 2 landfills. I think we should minimize unnecessary impacts. I think a lot of residents would oppose to the landfill extensions at Northeast New Territories and West New Territories. In North New Territories, I think we should think of ways to minimize objections from the public. I think you do not just have to consider the absolute fairness, but also the sentiments from the residents. If we think about the case of Singapore, it's very similar to Hong Kong. We cannot compare with South Korea or Taiwan because Hong Kong is much smaller. So why can Taiwan solve this problem while we cannot? Does it mean they are so far ahead of us? Can we put in more money to speed up the process, to catch up? I think the public is willing to put in more money if the problem can be solved. I think this is a last resort. Undersecretary, we have to expand the Cheung Kwan O landfill, although it's relatively the extent is relatively small. If you look at Singapore, every inch of land is very precious. In Hong Kong, although the landfill is relatively smaller, we face a very serious problem. Please make it brief, Undersecretary. Thank you for all the members' problems. Let's use 90 seconds to look at Mr. Gary Fan's motion. It's the opposition of the landfill extension at Southeast New Territories. Please raise your hand if you have any objections. You cannot raise your hand. Mr. Kenneth Chan will represent the civil party. Only members of the committee can raise their hands. Members who agree with this motion, please raise your hands. Chairman, I want to amend the motion. I want to include Northeast, Southeast, as well as West Territories in my motion. No problem. However, since time is limited, please, next time, please raise your amendments as soon as possible. Can you read your amendment? The panel opposes to the panel on environmental affairs opposes the landfill extensions of all landfills. Does everyone understand? Later, we will share the motion with everyone. The motion is the opposition of the panel on EA opposes the current landfill extensions of all landfill areas. Is this right? members, the Secretariat reminded me that we can handle the issue with two separate motions. If we would you consider this amendment as a second motion instead of an amendment? Right now we have two motions. I will read it again to everyone. First, it's Mr. Gary Fan's motion. The panel on EA opposes the landfill extensions of all landfills. Please raise your hands if you agree. Only members of this panel can raise their hands. We have 9 votes. Opposing votes, 4 votes. We have 4 votes. Any abstinence? The second motion, Mr. Wu Chi-wai. It's the opposition of all current landfill extension proposals. Number of opposing votes, 4 votes. Abstain. For the first motion of Mr. Gary Fan, we have 9 votes to 4. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. This second motion, we have 4 votes, respectively for and against and abstain. So I hope we have enough time to speak up on Saturday. I hope that the public will also will still behave well on Saturday, just like today.